Hey guys, it's Lisa from NYC Gal Out. Welcome back to my channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's NYC Gal Pod. Which kudos to Meredith. You guys try to run her and Lisa off, and they both came back. Andy asking Meredith, what is the goal? Because that was what Meredith did when she came back after she walked away. She said, I just have a question. What is the goal of all of this? So Meredith tells Andy, well, I guess this will all depend on how this person responds. And she turns to Whitney. Whitney's basically sitting at the end of the couch. She's basically fallen off the couch. Andy Cohen wants her the far away from him as much as possible. Whitney has never sat first chair. She tries to do the most every single season, and she's never gotten to sit next to Andy. Meredith turns to Whitney and says, Whitney, is there anything that you want to say? Heather's like doing like all these weird eye movements. Whitney says that, she was really drunk at BravoCon. I know, Andy, that you were really upset with my behavior and whatever else. Basically showing her freaking ass at BravoCon after she's calling Meredith a pill popper and an alcoholic. Andy Cohen, he's doing poker face. He was like, well, we were just concerned about you. Andy Cohen was more than just concerned. He was upset. And I said, Whitney got a talking to. And there was also executives from NBC Universal, as well as sponsors that were there, representatives from sponsors, advertisers. So Whitney is apologizing to Andy. Meredith is like, okay, well, that's not really how the conversation went. Whitney's trying to say that she knows how the conversation went. But Meredith says, how would you know how the fuck the conversation went? You were shit-faced drunk. She didn't say it like that. I'm saying it like that. And you were falling on your freaking face, and your husband had to carry you because you couldn't even fucking walk. And again, she doesn't talk like that. I talk like that. But Whitney, she tries to minimize her alcoholic self by saying that I'm a happy drunk and, I'm a fun, happy drunk. Girl, the kind of drunk you are is chasing after your cousin in a Bermuda parking lot talking about your kitty cat. So much so that Heather, she lost her damn shoe, ran to her producer, was like, get her away from me, get her away from me. She's drunk, she's crazy. So no, you are not fun alcoholic Rose. You are shit-faced, drunk, sloppy ass, even dare I say trashy Whitney Rose. Let's talk about all the times that we've actually seen her shit-faced drunk on Bravo. I'm not even talking about like off camera. I'm talking about on camera on Bravo. Season 1, she got shit-faced drunk, even though Lisa very graciously gave her cases of her tequila, as well as provided bartenders for her events. She did her vow renewal. She legit was pole dancing to her father. In that season 1, episode 1 scene, she tries to tell Lisa that Lisa's bartenders broke glass or whatever. And Lisa, she stood by her employees. She made the accusation that Lisa was giving BJs for jazz tickets. She wanted Heather to co-sign it. She was drunk off her ass. Heather would not co-sign it. She was like, no, I know about it because you told me about it, but I was never with you when you allegedly heard this. That was what their falling out was. That was what the rift between bad weather was. Whitney, you are not a fun drunk. You are barely functioning, but that is your karma for trying to project your alcoholism onto Meredith. Listen, these ladies need to call Mary out for her shit. I already told you guys why in like a video clip that I posted up. I felt like, you know what? You need to bring Jen Shah back, because in the seasons when Jen Shah was on it, these ladies had a little bit more courage, I guess, but they were more comfortable to call Mary out on her bullshit. They legit was like, yeah, she runs a cult and she's a grandfather fucker. But ever since Jen Shah has been gone, they have been reluctant and very PC when it comes to Mary, and I don't like that. There is a lot of shit that they need to call Mary out on. Angie especially. Angie, your friendship with Mary, you take a lot of shit for Mary. And with Mary and Angie, I am sure that Angie wishes that she could go off on Mary the way she pops off on Lisa. But she's probably also very aware of the optics, especially since last season in the reunion, she legit called Whitney racist. Now, I legit call her Whitney Alcoholic Rose for the fact that she's shit-faced drunk on my TV screen like every episode. So I am definitely not a Whitney apologist or a Whitney stan. Far from it, and probably the opposite. I stand no one. If there was somebody that I would stand, it would be Taylor Swift, but I stand no one. But I will say, though, that when Andy Cohen gave Mary the opportunity to drop some examples, because he was like, how is she racist? What has she done to make you feel like she's racist? She came up with some BS like, well, she's a Mormon. So I could say the same thing about you, Mary. Like, you are against the LGBTQ community because you're a Christian. Yeah, That's how ridiculous well, she's a Mormon is for you to call her a racist. And again, like I said, ever since the only minority on the current cast, who also happens to be a black woman, calling someone on the cast, a cast where everyone else is white, a racist, it scared all the other whitey ladies away from calling her out on her shit. Because the way that Angie has to kind of sit there and eat shit when it comes to Mary, and the way that Heather and basically everyone, all the whiteys, the way they all have to eat shit, it's because they are scared of the racism label. And I feel like, you know what, if you guys are so scared to say anything negative about Mary, then bring Jen Shaw back. And Meredith, she has already stated that she talks with Jen, and even when she was in prison, that she accepted a phone call from Jen. I would love for Meredith just to like meet up with her for coffee and just be like, hey, so what's been going on with you? And then just drop all the shit about the rest of the cast. That would be a great season opener. But if it's not a season opener, that would be a great season finale, especially with Mary. The other ladies are afraid because they're white to say anything. Jen will just be like, well, what do you expect, Meredith? This is a grandfather fucker. Am I surprised that she's being two-faced? I scammed old people. I mean, she's scamming old people at her church, you know? Like, the difference is I did it on the phone and she's doing it behind the mass of Jesus, whatever. I want Heather Gay to shit in her pants when she finds out that Meredith met up with Jen. Leave it up to the court of public opinion on who you want to believe, whether you believe Heather when she says that Jen gave her the black eye. I don't believe that. I already said that it's fucked up Botox. White people, the lines are always here on the forehead, here on the eyes. They're called crow's feet, and the laugh lines. So Heather, that looks like fucked up Botox. And again, where do you get the Botox? The crow's feet. That is fucked up Botox. I do not care that she said Jen gave her that black eye. Anyway, I digress. Let's get to the damn episode. I did like a short little clip about, you know, this and that, so I don't feel like re-going over the stuff that I already went. What I will say is that Greek tragedy that, you know, the playwriter did, I thought it was pretty good, except for the Mary part. You know, again, I felt like with Mary, it was heavily PC because nobody wants to be accused of being a racist. You have the token minority, it could go one of both ways. You can have it like how it is in the OC, where it's blatantly very obvious that they do not give a fuck about the optics. And I feel very strongly like they didn't give a fuck because that's what they're used to. Orange County, their production team is Evolution, which is owned by Amazon Studios. Shed Media, they do Beverly Hills and New York City, as well as Salt Lake City, and they're owned by Warner Brothers. I feel like with Shed Media, they try to be very aware of the optics, especially when it comes to stuff like racism. And when you think about it, as far as all the franchises goes, Shed Media is the only production that has the most diverse cast. That last season with the original Roni cast, they actually had to bring in like a cultural diversity manager person representative. I don't even know what the hell their title was, but they had to bring that person in to basically tell them how to be PC because they had their first black cast member, Ebony. They are very PC aware. Something needs to be done about Mary. Everyone is afraid to say even the slightest negative thing about her, no matter how outrageous she is. And it is a cult. Like sometimes I think even her fans are freaking cults. Like they drink the Kool-Aid. They excuse her behavior by saying, oh, you know, her clapback, she's so funny, and you know, she could read the other ladies. And I'm like, no, that's you guys hyping her up. I need for Salt Lake City to treat Mary Cosby like an actual cast member. She does not get a free pass just for being black. Like straight up, that's ridiculous. The way she treats the other ladies, she legit screams in Angie's face and was like, I'm done with you. Me and you are done. And then the next day they're talking about farce and people excuse it for Mary like, oh, I love how quirky she is. Like, no. Because then when Meredith does that shit, it's like, oh my gosh, she must be on drugs. Like, what? Because it's like you see what you want to see. You believe what you want to believe. Your algorithm feeds you what you believe, and it will very rarely deviate from opinions that are different from yours. So you get reinforced that your perspective is the correct one or is the majority one. Because if you're liking, you're commenting, you're engaging, you're sharing, you're downloading, you're doing all of that, the algorithm, whatever social media platform you're on, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, the algorithm will feed you more of that. So it perpetuates your belief that your opinion is correct and that you're in the majority. This is why I don't stand anyone. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets it. Everybody gets the criticism. Anyway, Rowan, I can't with her. She is so histrionic with her whatever. She's so theatrical. She wants the moment. She wants the spotlight. It's obnoxious. Angie is definitely jealous of Lisa. Lisa was being vulnerable, and Angie, she had to keep on inserting, doing her little snide remark. Oh, like with your Cartier, with your this, with your that. Like, girl, please. As if you don't, Angie, let's be real, okay? I know there's going to be Angie apologists out there who's trying to say, oh, but Lisa does this, Lisa does that. Let's talk about Angie. She chimed in when Lisa was being vulnerable, saying that, you know, why she uses her wealth as a shield. She tries to put in her 1-2 snide remarks. But Angie, you are the one that shows up talking about, you had the Porsche first, you had the watch first, whatever. You actually got into like a table fight with Lisa over who had more Porsches and who had it first. So you're no better. But actually, I'm going to say you're worse because you are also the one that brings all the props. You're throwing out black cars and Prada bracelet and all this other stuff. You're doing it. It is jealousy because you want to be the queen bee. That is why you're always harping about being the center snowflake. Like, girl, your center snowflake does not equal a bigger paycheck. Your center snowflake doesn't even get you next to Andy Cohen at the reunion seats. You're no better when it comes to bragging about wealth. And like I said, I think sometimes you're even worse. I felt very much this season was because they were very jealous, upset, and whatever else that Lisa negotiated her contract. Whitney and Heather especially, because they also started season 1, episode 1 with Lisa. But bad weather and Angie wanted this to be a Lisa Barlow takedown season. And when it wouldn't happen on Below Deck, that's when they decided to flip it on to Meredith, because I do not believe for 1 second that any of them gives a fuck about Brittany like that. None of them do. But what would we be talking about? Another one of Whitney's failed business ventures? She's been on for 6 seasons. Every single season she launches another MLM and it fails and whatever. And then she's so excited about this new business venture that she's launching and she hypes it up. Business is doing great. Everything is great, and next season is like down the fucking shitter. What are we going to talk about with Heather? How much she is so happy that her kids are out of the house, about her Mormon trauma, about, like, girl, I'm surprised that she doesn't get run the fuck out of Utah. She badmouths the Mormon faith so much. It's probably why she's an alcoholic. Like, and Mary, you legit accused of running a cult. And it doesn't even have to do with this documentary, because that legit was an accusation that was levied against you on season 1. Little girl was the one that said it to you directly back when she wasn't afraid of you pulling out the race card. Listen, I enjoy Heather on my television screen a lot more when she was able to tell Mary, fuck you, grandfather fucker. Rowan, I don't even know what the fuck to say about her. She's definitely a snake in the grass. And then she does that really weird shit where she'll say it on camera and then deny that she said it or that people took it out of context. She does that shit with her estranged husband, Grandpa Todd. So for her specifically, I also see this as a launching pad for her to have financial security. There is something in marriage called the 10-year rule. That 10-year mark is more or less universal. And the reason why I say it's more or less universal is because of Social Security. Social Security Administration, they have something called the 10-year rule, which is that if you are married to someone for 10 years, even if you end up getting divorced later, you are eligible for 50% of their work credit. It doesn't take away from what they get from Social Security during retirement or whatever, but it means that you also get a separate check that isn't deducted from your spouse's pay. That's your own check that Social Security will cut for you. That is based off of 50% of your spouse's work credit, whether he was an ex-husband or a current husband. When he dies, you get the full benefit of whatever their Social Security retirement check was. So that 10-year rule is basically universal in the US when it comes to divorces and stuff like that because of Social Security, amongst other things. Rowan did not make the 10-year mark. Now, last season, I thought she said that they were on their 10-year anniversary, but it must have just been like her celebrating them being together for 10 years, not actually married for 10 years, because the separation, even if you're not officially divorced, when you're separated, they count the date of separation as the official, this is the moment we freeze the assets. You missed a cutoff, which means that she doesn't get alimony because there's no child support. They don't have any kids together. Utah is very conservative. In the eyes of the law, she has not contributed meaningfully into their relationship. In order for you to get alimony, you have to establish certain criteria, which are not that easy to be met. You know, it's easier when you have kids, which they don't have kids with each other. Prenups actually help you sometimes. Melania, her prenup definitely helps her. The best example that I could give you, Portia Williams on Real Housewives of Atlanta, a prenup worked in her favor. Her first divorce, she didn't have a prenup and she was fucked. In her second divorce with Simon Kabadia, and I think she definitely married that man just to get something out of him. So prenups are not necessarily bad. And in Rowan and Todd's situation, a prenup would have probably helped her. So don't see it as, oh, this is a good thing. It actually might be a really bad thing for her that she doesn't have a prenup. Because the biggest argument for why you deserve alimony a lot of times is that I gave up my career to stay home and take care of the kids. Because the number one question is, why can't you work? And usually the number one reply is because I stayed home to be a housewife. She can't make that argument because, again, they don't have kids together. So he's not responsible for her child, who, by the way, is an adult at this point. But the other thing is, she could say that, yes, she was financially dependent on him. But what hurts her is the fact that she did not have a professional career. I could have worked in a PR firm. I could have worked at a radio station. I could have worked at a newspaper. I had this communication degree that I didn't get to use because I became a housewife. I'm financially dependent on my husband. She doesn't get to make that argument. But what will hurt her the most is the fact that she has work history. Now, are there exceptions? Of course there are exceptions, but exceptions are not the standard. And the standard is that, unfortunately, 9 years of not working does not equal to you not being able to get a job. But the biggest argument against her was that, listen, she was not like, it wasn't like she gave up her job at NASA. It wasn't like she gave up her job as a doctor or whatever. She gave up her job working in some office setting, maybe for a financial company or whatever. Who the fuck knows? Maybe she was just a paper pusher who answered the phone. That doesn't satisfy the requirement. But what also doesn't satisfy the requirement is if you have your own work history. And now she is meaningfully, gainfully employed by Bravo. That is income. I mean, it's a very privileged job, but it's a job nonetheless. So it's not like she doesn't have any money. So again, this all hurts her. If she wanted to be taken care of like that, she probably should have had a kid with Todd. But I feel like Todd's probably a little bit smarter than that, especially because my understanding is that with his first marriage, the ex-wife made out pretty good. She made out pretty good, and it's probably because she has kids with the man. I'm sure Todd was like, yeah, no, the Galactic is closed for baby making. But what I will close off this season finale with is just that someone on my TikTok left a comment that I really loved, and it was on one of my videos. One of the comments on that video was someone saying, I'm so tired of Rowan and her pseudo intellectualism. And I was like, damn, I really like that. I'm going to use that because that is the perfect description of Rowan. Let me know your thoughts, guys. All right. Don't forget to hit the like, follow, subscribe, leave me a comment, and all that good jazz. I'll check you guys out later. Bye.